It's a pretty crisp day outdoors. Wow, is that window ever dirty? It looks beautiful, but it's cold. It's pretty cold. Majestic beast. So I'm in the shop, and the shop today is a little bit, it's crowded in here. When you need to have your Kenworth in the shop, it makes it crowded. I want to talk about the S10 and a bit of progress made and a question that I have, question marks. I'm making this all up as I go, so there's always questions. But I have my engine in its final resting place, I think. It's coming out again because there are a few things I need to clearance a little differently. And you know, there's this thing about painting and cleaning, which normally I wouldn't do, but this is actually going to be kind of cool when it's done, so should probably make at least a slight effort at having it start out sort of clean and nice. But anyways, I did end up putting a 3/8 plate between both engine mounts and the truck frame, which just brought everything up and in just a hair. And that has now my steering is clearing the oil pan. My steering knuckle there was rubbing against the oil pan earlier, which isn't ideal. So yeah, I gave you a little glimpse of cross memberage there that we won't talk about just yet. That's temporary and not very pretty, what's in there right now. I did put this grater blade is welded in here before I cut my main cross member out, just to keep things sort of where they started out. Put my truck intake on just to sort of see clearance as far as in the back, and height wise I'm going to be awfully close to the hood, which is perfect. Hopefully I can tuck it under there. I didn't really want to make a bulge. But the main thing I wanted to talk about today, let's get right to the bottom of things here. Underneath we go. Underneath. So I'm just working on my my trans cross member, which is something that I don't have for this truck. If I had the original one, I'm almost positive I could have modified it to work here, because this Muncie transmission is ending up very close in terms of, if you look at where the original trans mount sits on top of this ledge with these 3 bolts, goes across to there where I have that angle iron with 2 bolts, and it is right in line with my transmission. So I'm guessing the original cross member I could work with just a bit of modificating, but I don't have it, or the drive shaft for that matter, which also would probably just about work. But that's okay, I'll make one. But the question of the day is this. So trans cross members, when you buy them, sorry I'm shaking you around here, some of them are just a straight across pipe, which is the simplest obviously to make. I have a piece of square tubing here, 2-inch square tubing, that I'm going to use for my main piece across. And the question becomes, if I go straight across, then my exhaust is going to have to go over it. If you look at performance ones that you can buy, they kind of are camel humped so that your exhaust goes under the cross member, and it droops down in the middle to go under the transmission. So that's where I'm debating, but I'm thinking, I'm just going to reposition myself here so we can get further under here. My exhaust is going to be coming down only this side. I am going to put a crossover, which is going to wrap somewhere right around the bell housing, behind the oil pan, somewhere in that neighborhood from the driver's side. You can see my driver's side header up there. I'm going to come under with that. The reason being is I plan to stay with my with my factory fuel tank, which goes here. I want to keep my truck box for now, so my factory fuel tank is on this side. And even dumping out the side, there's really nowhere to bring exhaust here and get it properly behind the cab. So my plan initially now anyways, I have 2.5-inch exhaust coming off those headers. And this side, the header comes from up top there beautifully down. So for me to come here and tie in with a crossover is actually pretty straightforward. And then run one 3-inch or 3.5 or whatever, and then we'll just NASCAR it out the side over right about there somewhere, straight at the Model T. So yeah, that's, if you ever wondered what a Muncie transmission looks like in a S10, it's like made for it. That's the other thing, my shift linkage is on this side, so that this, what looks like a nice little space here, is going to be full of shift linkage. Not that there should still be room to bring an exhaust pipe here. And my e-brake cables here, which I'm going to leave factory. So yeah, dual exhaust is cool, but a big single out the passenger side is also cool, I think. And in this case, easier for me. But yeah, from here, it's easier to, my temptation then, knowing that I'm going to do that with my exhaust, is from here with my cross member to bend it up, run it up here. Plus then I could tie, because I have vertical holes on this side, I was going to put an angle iron there to tie it to, but then I'm pulling on it. I'd like to be above those holes with my main load instead of in front or behind them, so it's not a twisting load, if that makes any sense. This side is easy because it sits on a ledge here. So that I just come straight across from here, straight under here, and then up, so that my exhaust runs underneath. I think I'm going to do that. To get my transmission out, my exhaust comes off no matter how I do it, because even if it's above my cross member, I'm going to have the crossover under the under the bell housing there, so it's going to have to come out anyways to get my transmission out. And yeah, and then I think for serviceability, if I'm bolting on each header, and then a bolt flange right somewhere around this cross member is probably the next smart thing to do, just in terms of being able to get it apart quickly and easily. So yeah, that's how it looks down below. You can see, or maybe you can't, but the one other consideration I have using this truck pan, you can see how far it hangs down below the bell housing there, the oil pan, and that big piece of angle iron that I have bracing across the cross member, the front cross member at the suspension. That is, part of that is going to stay there as a deflector, because I don't want I don't want that aluminum pan to be what I'm leveling gravel ridges with. I want to make something in front of that does that, so that it's going to look prettier and obviously get tidied up, and lots more bracing and filling in of that cross member, but that angle iron is actually functional, and it's going to stay there because snow. Will we drive it in the winter? Of course not. But yeah, gravel ridges are definitely going to be a consideration. In terms of what sort of clearance we're going to have when this thing gets set down. So yeah, that's where I'm at, working on cross members. And yeah, then when I have the engine back out again, that's when I'll finish up the front cross member. I still have to figure out exactly where I can go with metal under there around this oil pan, and still have clearance for it to be able to be lifted out. So little baby steps. I've been making just a little bit of progress here, which is nice. These wheels and tires, this is the original truck tires from the S10, so 14-inch. The 14-inch wheels, the original ones, and I've got little wee winter radials on them now, so these back tires are going to get bigger. The front tires, that's what I'm going to run on the front, I think, initially. But I'm tempted to buy two bigger wheels, two 15-inch wheels for the back, a little bit wider, a little bit taller, and then run bigger wheels on the back just to fill these wheel wells a little bit and make it look. I'm staying stock-ish ride height. With the heavier engine and the smaller wheels, the front is going to dip down a bit. But the truck makes for such a fine storage, you know, for all the parts and things. When you're building a vehicle, I recommend a truck, because you just put all the stuff in the back. Just before we go, those are the words you want right there. This is a part about it that I just love. 4-speed. All right, that's all I got, guys. Haven't done much, just been thinking lots. That's, you know, so much of a project like this when it's just making things. Oh, the other thing I did was, ignore the extremely long line, but I did hook up my clutch. That was the other thing I don't have it bled. I just hooked it up and filled it with fluid, and I'm sort of thinking that master cylinder might have gone bad just from sitting dry for so many years. I don't know, do they go bad? I'm not 100% sure if my factory one will actually have enough volume anyways to operate the release bearing, but that's another thing I wanted to try before the engine comes out for the last time, just so that I know if I need to change that out. Next considerations, you know, once the engine and transmission are perfectly in place, the shifter I already made the hole for, I had it in once. Next considerations are going to be fuel system. I'm going to tie into the factory lines and run my lines behind the engine, down the firewall, to the factory tank. Cooling, I don't know yet, but it's looking to me, this water pump pulley, I can cut these threads off, which I'm going to do because I cannot put a mechanical fan on here. There's certainly no room for that. Most guys, when you see a V8 in an S10, the radiator gets shoved forward into the rad support. Instead of sitting behind the rad support, it goes into the rad support, and that usually buys you enough room for your radiator and electric fans on the inside. And if I go 2 fans, then I'm on either side of this, you know, the way they would dip out just slightly. It'd be on either side of my water pump pulley. So I'm not worried about that at all. That's why I know that's going to work fairly easily. But yeah, we'll need fuel. We will need a drive shaft, but that's also not difficult. Exhaust might be difficult. I haven't decided yet if I'm gonna try and gear up to make that myself, or if I'm gonna hire that out. But yeah, as it warms up outside, if it ever does, then I will get more inspired and carry on. Oh, and of course, I'm gonna have to do a little bit of wiring here, but that's okay. That's also actually going to be kind of fun, I think, learning that all. The jury's out as far as whether it's going to work to run a Gen 4 LS with a manual transmission using a stock E38 truck ECU. We will find out, and I will report my findings. But yeah, if you're still here, I congratulate you, and I'll pray for you a little also if you've got nothing better to do. But yeah, here we go on the S10. Back at her.